Hello everyone. Welcome to this edition of Midwest Ag This Week. I'm Stu Ellis. I take care of the farm chores here at WCIA 3. We want to introduce you to a lot of interesting things this week, but first of all, fertilizer prices are exploding higher. So what do you do? Tar spot's going to be back next year. So what do you do? We've got answers for both. And stay tuned for interesting conversations. We'll put the show on wheels right now.
Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week with host Stu Ellis.
Well, most of the profits from the 2021 harvest are going to be spent on putting the crop in next spring. Fertilizer will not only be twice as expensive this year, but may be hard to get, according to Kevin Johnson. Kevin's the new head of the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association.
It's the domino effect of a lot of issues that are hitting home right now. One here in just the last few weeks is with China. They are about a third of the world's export of phosphates. They've said that they are going to close that down until 2022, or at least in June of 2022. But also the biggest thing is you got high natural gas prices, and that's the biggest part of ammonia production is the high natural gas price, and that's really affecting. You had one of our major manufacturers say in Europe that they are going to quit production of UAN in that part of the UK. This is a year that if you see a little hiccup, it's going to be a big hiccup in the long term of fertilizer issues. I think if you talk with most of the fertilizer dealers right now, they have the exact same feeling where they're at as a farmer does. Most guys, especially on your liquid or UAN market, would have be 90% bought in August. We would talk about the summer fill. That usually happens in August and September. That is not going on. Most guys, I feel like, are in the 50 to 60% product bought for this year. Do I think anybody feels great where they're at? No. But a lot of guys are just trying to find where that production is and trying to buy it. Even though they don't probably love the price that they're paying for that at that point, right now they're just trying to get tons in the building so they know they got stuff locked in for next spring.
So what should a farmer be doing?
Have a good conversation, especially on the fertilizer stuff. What you guys have a plan of attack. What are you guys thinking? What are you thinking on planting acres? What do you need for crop inputs, but also the chemical side of stuff? Have a good discussion with your retailer or your chemical supplier and say, here's what I'm looking at. Here's what my true intent. I don't think guys have always had that conversation this early in the game. You have to have this conversation now.
And that's an exclamation point from Kevin Johnson. Another exclamation point. Many farmers reporting great potentially yields for corn, but they were diminished by tar spot fungus toward the end of the growing season. It was pervasive throughout the Corn Belt. Nothing can be done about it this year. But what about next year?
If you have something like this on your corn leaves, all these black spots, well, don't worry, you're like everybody else in almost the Midwest. Nathan Kluchevsky, really a crop protection specialist from Growmark.
That's a good way of putting it.
All right. Tar spot, it really is everywhere.
Right now, yeah, it's really blown up this year. We had just the right conditions at the right periods of time throughout the year to kind of bulk it up and spread it around the Midwest.
If we have that again next year, it'll do it again. But what can we do to prevent, we may not prevent tar spot, but maybe we can prevent how our corn is impacted by the tar spot.
That's right. There are some things you can do to reduce your risk. Look at your hybrid selection. We don't have anything that's really resistant to tar spot, but there is a large gradation in what we call susceptibility, right? And I think one of the silver linings to having a year like this is a lot of companies will now have some data on their hybrids and their lines that they're able to offer people because it was such a widespread, issue that they kind of know now which ones perform a little bit better against tar spot and which ones don't.
What about a fungicide application?
I tell people, look, you're still looking at that VT to R2 window, but if you want to make an application that's going to be more effective against tar spot, you're going to want to go with one of those more premium products with the 3 modes of action. It's the timing that's extremely critical though. with this disease. If you get in too early or too late, you're not going to see the type of results that you're looking for. And I think we had a lot of potential problems with that this year, getting things on at the right time.
So that's some of the tricks for next year to think about, because there's a 100% chance that we'll probably have tar spot again that you're going to be seeing.
And there's a 100% chance that we're going to have weather that
Yes.
probably fosters tar spot next year too. So
Yeah.
I'm not asking you for next year's forecast.
Right.
How about in the next few days?
I can give you the next few days. That'll be no
Bingo.
problem. That'll be no problem. So after, a very productive stretch of days, we had a few chances for rain last week. Now, for the time we go to the weekend, we're going to be looking at very warm, very humid conditions once again. In fact, potentially looking at record high temperatures very close to that on Sunday. So it is going to be a very dry forecast this weekend, which will be good. But we also have the chance for additional rain showers too. So your Saturday forecast still looks to be, as you can tell here, pretty nice. With our temperatures, it'll be into the upper 70s and low 80s. And then looking at a little bit in the way of some windy conditions, we're thinking at times gusts could be approaching 20 miles an hour out of the southerly direction. But it is going to stay actually as an above average forecast here for this week. In fact, most of our temperatures are going to be into the at the coolest, the middle 70s, which will already be around 5 degrees or so warmer than normal, if that. So the low that brought all those rain showers this past week is departing the area. We have our new air mass that is much warmer here temporarily, but we're going to likely have 2 systems coming through the Midwest this week. Our first one comes in on Monday. That will provide us with a chance for some storms, we're thinking, too. And then once that system moves out of the area, it doesn't necessarily cool us down a whole lot, but there will be another larger system that comes in here by the time we get to Thursday that also brings us the chance for some of those showers and storms. So we're looking at kind of 2 systems to be coming through the area this week. In terms of the amount of rain, still not exactly a whole lot. Most of it is going to be mainly just a little bit closer to the Illinois River, where we get a little closer to an inch, inch and a half. But for us in central Illinois and then going into Indiana, maybe about a half of an inch to an inch or so of additional rainfall. Our future track, though, still calls for the continuation of some kind of humid days here, but early next week, with the chance of rain kind of out of here by Tuesday, it'll be a little bit more drier in the air. The same can be also said for Wednesday, so some decent days there to also continue working, but then later Thursday, we'll be looking at that chance of rain coming on in, and that will potentially once again impact us. 8 to 14 day outlook with our precipitation, actually pretty close to normal from October 15th to the 21st, and our temperature outlook still actually remains very warm compared to normal. So a lot of October, Stu, we're thinking is going to be a very warm month overall. A little dry here recently. We're probably going to catch back up a little bit with some of our rain chances, but it doesn't look to be anything out of the ordinary for October.
Well, the warmth will be needed to dry out some of the soil.
Correct.
Because after a while, it gets going to start making tracks in the field.
That is correct.
We don't want to do that.
Yes.
Speaking of tracks, join us. We're going to get climbing the combine cab right after this. Illinois soybean harvest reached 35% this past weekend, but slowed a bit with the rain this week. Before the showers, I visited with a Logan County farmer as he was cutting soybeans just south of Lincoln.
We're in the combine with Derek Martin of Mount Pulaski. And Derek, you, your dad, Jeff, brother Doug, you've got, you're finishing up or halfway through, or where are you on bean harvest at this point?
As of today, we're about halfway done through bean harvest. This year we decided to plant a bunch of early maturity beans to get harvest started and to get some early cover crops on ahead of corn next year. And we've had some beautiful weather here since for the start of harvest, so we've been able just to keep going on beans and not take a break. We're a big proponent of soil health and soil biology, and we do cover crops, and we put a product called Biomax on from AgriBiosystems that is a biological like compost tea, and we put that on in furrow with a planter in the spring, and then after harvest we're actually spraying all of our acres with another pass on it to help break down the residue and capture what fertilizer, what nutrients are left in that stouffer. We capture that, and the biology will keep that in the soil until next spring instead of letting it, gas off and release.
This apparently reduces part of your fertilizer bill.
Absolutely. There is P&K, there's thousands and thousands of pounds available, as well as other nutrients that are in our soil, and they're just not readily available. And through this process of biostimulants and cover crops and stuff. We improve the soil biology to help convert those into a readily usable form for our crops. But we haven't had any major breakdowns yet, so far it's not bad. And you know, when things are going good on a 90-degree day like today and the wind blowing, you know, we're cutting beans 4.5, 5 mile an hour, you know, doing 15 to 20 acres an hour per machine, and so we can cover some ground.
And speaking of soybeans, by all estimates, Brazilian farmers will plant a record acreage for both beans and corn this year. And with a good yield, may surpass the 5 billion mark for soybean production. Someone familiar with Brazil's agriculture is now studying here at the University of Illinois.
Farmers have certainly been watching Brazil because it's a major competitor for soybeans for many years, for corn now. And someone who is from Brazil and looking at the U.S. ag economy is Joanna Calusi. She is a graduate student at the University of Illinois working with Dr. Gary Schnitke. And Joanna, what part of Brazil did you grow up in?
I am from the south of Brazil, near Argentina and Uruguay. If you look at the map of Brazil, is the last one state.
China has become one of really the key to expansion in Brazil lately.
Yes, when you think about soybean exports in Brazil, almost 90% of the exports are from China. China is the main buyer from Brazil when you think about not just about soybean, about corn, about meat, beef, about poultry production, pork too. I mean, China, it's a very important partnership from Brazil.
Brazilian farmers concerned about La Nina again this year?
Yes, there is 70% chance of the La Nina phenomenon will happen in Brazil this year. But although so far the forecast it will be the low intensity, but of course this year, for example, the draw during the safrinha corn was very hard to farmers in Brazil. Because of that, the production decreased around 20% this year, safrinha corn production in Brazil, because of the draw. So there is a big expectation regarding the next season about the climate, because you know the climate is very important to agriculture.
Her English is a lot better than my Portuguese. Matt, can you speak Portuguese?
No, not very much.
They don't speak that around Windsor, huh?
Not a whole lot anyway.
Joining us is Matt Bennett of agmarket.net. And Matt, the Brazilian crop is going to be a big one if they can get through La Nina. And some headlines indicating that that may be an issue for them again this year.
Yeah, you know, last year the bigger issue, in my opinion, to do with La Nina was not getting the soybeans planted in a timely fashion, something that I talked about quite a bit last fall. This year, it sure looks like they're going to get those beans in the ground, which means the safrinha crop's likely to get planted in a timely fashion, which is a good thing. But La Nina typically is going to exacerbate some of the issues that they see, especially with that safrinha crop. Whenever the safrinha crop gets into pollination and later, that's the dry season for them. So if that gets even worse than what you typically see, it could definitely have an impact on their corn harvest, especially the safrinha crop, which is where most of that corn's planted.
Yields going on. You're not in the field here today. We can tell that, or you've got a really nice combine cab. But at least some of those yield reports, are getting to the Board of Trade anyway.
Yeah, you know, I think for soybeans, it seems like it's been very consistent. A lot of producers happy with their yields, maybe met or exceeded expectations in substantially more cases than corn. There's a lot of good corn out there. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, there's also a lot more variability with the corn crop. It's made it a little harder to kind of handicap it. So it looks to me like the Eastern Corn Belt is probably going to come in below expectations. In Western Corn Belt's probably going to come in maybe above expectations. So I don't expect the USDA to make any large-scale changes on corn yield there next Tuesday.
That's right. Next Tuesday is the supply-demand report, so that may be driving the market for a while next week.
Absolutely, and I expect it to be no huge changes. I think on corn, on soybeans, I could certainly see at least a bushel increase, but be very interesting. I think in the long run, this could be a record bean crop.
That's right. Matt, good luck at the combine cab here the rest of the harvest season, and thank you for today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. The University of Illinois Soybean Innovation Lab, led by Dr. Pete Goldsmith, addresses global challenges with soybean solutions. One of those is to bolster soybean production on the very small acreages in Central Africa to boost dietary protein. But that requires soybeans to be grown there. One of the really interesting things that University of Illinois does is work a lot with foreign countries. Dr. Brian Deers is a soybean breeder, and he's been breeding soybeans that will really help the African people grow a soybean crop, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
What is different from our soybeans than their soybeans?
So a major difference is the day length sensitivity of their crop versus our crop. So soybeans, what it does is it detects the day length, and that helps it to decide when to flower and when to mature. So the soybeans we grow in Illinois are adapted to the day length we have during our summers, which is much longer than the day length they would have in Africa during their growing season. So in Africa, they're close to the equator, and therefore they have very short days. So basically 12 hours a day, 12 hours of night, basically year-round. And so if we would take varieties from Illinois, grow them in Africa, they would only grow about 6 inches tall, pod out, and mature. And so therefore there would be very little yield.
So you are able to, you're not growing them here, you're really, are you traveling to Africa then to breed soybeans there?
So with our project, what my main focus is to work with the breeders in Africa. So we're helping them obtain more germplasm, getting them some better technology, providing some mentoring so that they can be more successful.
Basically, soybeans can be transferred, it's just the growing season is the downside.
That's right, and so part of what we've been doing is sourcing germplasm from other places in the world that have day lengths similar to what these researchers and farmers in Africa have. So for example, varieties have been developed in Brazil in similar latitudes, and we're helping them get varieties from Brazil. Also some places like in Asia too that would have similar day length. And our main focus is to help these smallholder farmers in Africa who really have issues with food security.
Stay with us, we're going to put you on wheels. If you need to regularly move something in your shop to be able to clean under it, make it easy on yourself. Put it on wheels. And if you don't believe how easy that will make your day, here's our shop talk. This is Tim Lecker. Tim works for University of Illinois. He takes care of all the farming and takes care of all the farm machinery. He likes a clean shop. But the problem is, you've got a lot of people coming through your shop, students and researchers all the time.
We do.
Now, are they as clean as your mom told you to keep your shop?
Not even close. Not even close at all.
And so that's an issue of people coming through your shop. It could be a hired man, it could be anybody. And so how do you keep your shop clean?
Well, it's not an easy task, that's for sure. Basically, most everybody that comes through and works out here at the Ag and Bioengineering Farm understands that where tools are and tools are supposed to be put back when they're done with their job, and I keep on them pretty hard.
But things get dropped on the floor. You probably don't have a housemaid to come clean up out here, do you?
I would be that person. So So no, we keep plenty of trash cans around. Everything's on wheels. That's probably the biggest thing that we do. Everything's on wheels. Whether it's floor sweep, brooms, trash cans, whatever it may be.
Everything is on wheels, so you can move it out of the way.
We can
clean
move
under it,
clean under it, whatever it may be. Yes.
This thing is heavy. You got wheels on it.
Yep. So this is just our bolt bins that we use. We've got SAE bolts and nuts and fasteners on one side, metric on this side, because the bolt bin's never close enough to the piece of equipment you're working on. So let's bring them closer, because that's time, wasted steps. So
put everything on wheels.
It works for us.
Move it out of the way.
Move it out of the way and clean under it.
And clean under it.
Yep.
Great idea from Tim Lecker, who's with the University of Illinois and really the farmer out here.
If you have created a work-saving idea for your shop, or invented a tool to make your job easier, or discovered a workaround to avoid problems, let us know about it. We'll be glad to stop at your shop and listen to your explanation. Maybe something was just not working as it should, and you figured out a better method. Send me a note, because that's the whole purpose of Shop Talk.
Before we wrap up today, I'd like to express appreciation to the Illinois Soybean Association for a very kind article in their Field and Bean magazine for this week. But that wraps up our show for today. We hope you have benefited from some of the information you have. I'm Stu Ellis.